and welcome to PhD 6 Positivity Hack delivered by myself, Beata and Laura Mercurio, who is joining us from London today. We are in not so sunny Malta today, in Valletta. It's been a lovely morning, but not so sunny anymore. Laura, it's been a pleasure to chat to you so many times. Finally, you're on the show. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me to your show. It's not so sunny here in London either. It's been sunny the last few days and today dark and rainy, but never mind. We keep positive.
Absolutely, because the aim of the show is to boost some positivity and most of all, make sure that you survive through the lockdown and you've got some good, positive inspiration. So today, Laura, who joined us from London, as I mentioned, and there is a little side story to meeting Laura, because last year my husband went to London and I stayed home, and I was bored, and he was telling me, you know what, I met this amazing woman. She's a trailblazer and she's very similar to you. And being typical woman, I was like a little bit jealous, even though I shouldn't, but still there is a woman that could, potentially be a threat to me or to my position. Anyway, long story short, we met online first time before Zoom was cool. We already used it to meet online, and we talked about your experience. We talked about my experience, about women in startups and startups overall, because you've been a mentor of many startups, but also you are a great achiever. You've been working with Barclays, huge names, and you've been working in Zurich, Australia, and now London. So what brought you to this field? How can you explain your career path?
Yeah, so I think the great thing of when we spoke, we first met, we have similar kind of qualities as far as like moving countries and being go-getters and stuff. And I actually sort of fell into my career, or actually the career kind of found me. So when I was studying at university, I was very kind of active in a lot of university clubs and societies. And I joined this one, club where it was all about sort of giving you the practical business skills to complement your degree. And one of the key things that we kind of focused on was like nurturing sort of, international graduate exchange. So when I finished my degree, I was like, I really want to travel, but I've invested so much time and effort and money into my degree. I didn't really want to just go backpacking around Europe and being a bartender, which is traditionally what happens with Aussies. You get a backpack, you leave, and you do that. So I ended up, doing an international graduate exchange, and that kind of took me to Citigroup in Switzerland. So I was in a technology division. I knew nothing about technology. But what it did do was look at where my skills were transferable, because I had good organizational skills. So I did a lot of sort of project management and a lot of those technology type projects where I kind of learnt a lot in a big international bank. And it was meant to be an 18-month cultural experience, kind of integrate with a lot of the other graduates that were there, learn and go back to Australia. But I wasn't ready to go back yet. So I was really keen to kind of stay with the company and, travel a bit more. And my hard work paid off, because my boss at the time asked me, hey, where do you want to go if you were to stay? Do you want to go to London or to New York? Now, at the time, I didn't care. And then it was also the height of the 2002 recession. So for me, I was like, whoever will take me, I will go, because I wasn't ready to kind of stop traveling and learning about new things in my career and cultures. And, because Australia's so far away that, 24 hours on a bus gets you out of one state. And that's all I knew at the time. So when I used to be able to go from Switzerland to Italy for coffee in 4 hours, absolutely loved it. So then they transferred me to London, and it was a challenging time because I was quite young and naive, and I would turn up and try wonder where everyone that I'd built really good relationships were, and a lot of them had made redundant and things like that. So that's how I kind of fell into technology and into banking, and then sort of just built my career from there. And then as I grew and I started to mentor and nurture sort of the younger people, that's how I then decided to go consulting. And I was sort of consulting independently, still doing major programs, and then eventually helping out in the fintech and the startup world.
Well, that's fascinating. You mentioned the 2003 crash and the previous crisis, and actually people don't tend to remember things. They don't tend to actually learn from history. So, and now everybody's like crying their eyes out, and it's like the end of the world. And somehow we will survive, even though we think we are not going to make it through the block, we are not going to make it round the corner. We make it. So we are the survivors, right? So tell me about, because one of the questions I always try to ask my lovely guests is, what about the failure? Do you remember any failure and how you learned from it?
Yes, I think there's a lot of failures along the way. And I think the most important thing is every time you fall, you've got to try to get back up and got to try and learn from that. So, I mean, I had a number of failures. I think the most important leap of faith I tried to take with my career was when I tried to do it alone. And when I decided to be independent and start my own business, where you forget that when you're in a big corporate, you've got the legal department, you've got the, the accounting department, you've got this massive sort of organization behind you to kind of do that. So there were times that I was like falling over and thinking, not getting things done correctly, or I was like everything and anything at the same time. And it was just one of those things where you've just got to pick up yourself and keep going. And I think the biggest probably learning and failing was I had a massive network and I just wasn't utilizing them as much as I should, because even though I had all these connections and stuff, I didn't look at it in a way to kind of go, actually, it's time to rein in some favors here. Who have I helped in the past that can now help me in my business, and who can then form my kind of organization, and surrounding myself with all those good people to try help me kind of get to where I needed to go. So I've got lots of stories of things that didn't go right and things that didn't go wrong. But with all of them, I had to take what I could and I put it on what I call my lessons learned board, and put that on my lessons learned board. And then, hopefully other people can then learn from it. And that's how I kind of coach and mentor, and help the, other people build their business.
So tell me about that board. I've never heard about it. You never mentioned to me.
My lessons learned board. Yes. Every time something falls over, I'm going to put it up and, do. So today was a perfect example. There was, this meeting I was supposed to, I didn't need to go to this meeting, but I really wanted to join to support someone. And then I got so wound up in some of the other hot topics I had to get to that I forgot about this other one meeting because they didn't put it in my diary. And I felt quite bad. So one of the things I've learned and it's a very typical thing that us women do, we tend to beat ourselves up about stuff. So now I just put it on my lessons learned of like, let it go, forget about it, move on. So, it's those types of things that whenever something goes wrong, it's sort of looking at it in a way that, okay, things happen for a reason, and sort of move on. I kind of had to take a different perspective in life when, certain things, it was like stop, start. And, one of the things I need to continually remember is, if something doesn't go your way, you need to look at it as it just redirecting you to get you to something better, or to get you to where you actually need to be, as opposed to it being a blocker.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we talked about failures, and what about, and this is a open conversation, you can say, no, I'm not going to talk about it, but you're quite fearless, so I'm sure you're going to answer. What are your fears? What do you fear the most?
I think it is that fear of failure. Is like, because I have such high expectations of myself and I always want to get to that next level and get to that next level and get to that next level. I think it's that fear of failure in business, in personal life, financially, because I have been so sort of self-sufficient and, effective in what I've done. And I think a lot of women at the moment, especially under sort of COVID, this fear of losing your job, this fear of like, I don't have the pipeline of clients I need to do. But again, taking that fear and turning that fear into fire. And once you turn that fear into fire and get that fire in the belly to go, okay, this is just a problem and a challenge that I need to solve. I'm good at solving problems. So how do I shift that now, pivot my business to still continue to go? Because as you said, Beata, it's not the end of the world. We're just in a little bit of a hiccup at the moment with life and things like that. So it's how do you take that fear, turn it into fire, and sort of just keep pushing to get to where you need to get to.
Absolutely. So can you actually, how are you coping with the COVID? Because you're sitting in your rather small apartment. You don't have a garden, do you?
I don't. I've got a little courtyard, but I'm lucky because I've got a park next door. So I tend to go out for a little bit of a walk, but there seems to be a lot of people, like the last few days when it was sunny, going out, and it's that kind of fear of like, who's coughing, who's not. I'm coping okay. I think one of the key things is to make sure that you've got your support network. I think the challenging thing for me is living so far away from my family at the moment, and they're on the other side of the world, and it's comparing stories and knowing that what used to be quite easy, like, oh, that's okay, there's something going on at home, I'll jump on a plane, I'll head over. Well, you just can't do that right now. So it's that knowing at what point is everything going to open up? How do we do that? How do you support and use your support network around you to kind of get through it? So that's why it's always great chatting to you as well, because it's yesterday I was having a bit of a down day. We had a really good chat. Today's an up day. So you just got to kind of keep moving with the times. And I think one of the key things for me, as much as my legs hurt right now because it was legs day, is getting my fitness in. So I did a CrossFit class earlier today. My legs are on fire, but it got the happy hormones going, and really kind of keeping me mentally focused and as well as physically fit.
Yeah. So I think it's also what really makes you happy. So whatever makes you happy, just do it, and remember to do it constantly. So to boost your energy. And actually, yesterday I watched Trini. Trini and Susanna did a great show about makeovers, and they are very, uplifting videos. And she was talking about, put something colorful and, make some flowers in the head and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? It's so simple. These small things,
Yeah, and I think it's really important when we are in this kind of COVID lockdown. So today's probably one of very few days I've kind of put makeup on and put the perfume on and went all out and stuff like that. And I really think it's something that now I'm just going to do a bit more often because, I've been in gym wear because I'll get out and I'll work. And unfortunately, one of the clients I'm working with at the moment, a lot of people don't turn the camera on. And because they don't turn the camera on, you're missing that face-to-face interaction. You don't get to see someone. So then when you do put the camera on, you're like, oh, hang on a minute. And I think that's kind of one of the things is I think some people are missing at the moment is not kind of turning up as their kind of best self, because it's easy to kind of go, oh, I might just at home, I might just hang in the PJs and stuff. So I think it's really important to kind of still keep all those, things that you kind of normally do to make you feel that level of, goodness about yourself, professionalism, etc., etc.
Yeah, like level of normal.
Yes,
I would even call it.
Absolutely.
And actually, it's brilliant because once you put your garment and a little bit of perfume, you just feel that more confident. And even if somebody doesn't see you, it doesn't matter because it boosts your energy and you feel this is a special day. So maybe it's time for comments from our viewers. It's lovely to see you, Olga. Great to see you. And maybe you can share with us how you're coping. What is your boosting energy time, whether it's a glass of wine or, nice earrings or whatever you put online. Maybe you would like to share it, or you would like to ask some questions. There is always time to ask questions and participate in this discussion. So, Laura, back to your humble beginnings.
Yes.
Was there any mistake you made that you kind of look back and you think, maybe I should be like, for example, we were talking a couple of weeks ago with Ethna Trainer, and she was talking about the fact that maybe if she pushed a little bit harder in her journalism career, maybe she would go a little bit further. Is there anything you think, reflecting back on your past, is there anything you fear that you could have done better, faster?
Yeah, I did see that. could absolutely resonate with what she was saying. And I think it was one of those things where it's that I wish I'd pushed harder earlier in my career for the seniority and the skills level and the pay that I deserved. So I think walking into my career, I had this belief of, oh, you know, if you work hard, you're going to get to where you're going to go and people are going to notice that. And I soon noticed, especially working in very male-dominated industries, that wasn't the case. You had to kind of be shouting louder, or, you know, it's that dominant sort of trait that kind of happens. And so it took me a while to kind of go, right, you know what, I'm going to ask for something. I'm going to ask for the pay rise. I'm going to tell you the job path I want. And if you don't make that happen, then I'm just going to go elsewhere. And when I finally got to that level, you know, I never believe it's never too late. I just think it's like, use that as a stepping stone and get to that next level. I wish I'd done it a bit earlier, but when I did do it, it was so empowering that I kind of went, right, now I know my value. This is what I'm worth. On a go forward basis, I know where my benchmark is, what I'm willing to negotiate up or down, but what I absolutely won't negotiate further down from. And I kind of use that as an example with sort of when I was negotiating my pay when I was still a permanent staff member, and I do it now with my sort of some of my corporate consulting, you know, gigs, is I know what my base is going to be and what I won't absolutely go down from, because it's knowing your worth and knowing your value. And that's what I sort of mentor some of the women and some of the kind of startups that I, you know, work with, because I think people really absolutely need to know what their worth and what their value is, because people are willing to pay for that, you know, and people are willing to work with like-minded people and stuff like that. And, you know, there's lots of motivators in life. And I think, you know, money's probably one of them in the grand scheme of things, but it's more about you as a person and valuing who you are and the skills and the knowledge you bring.
Absolutely. Which brings us to another topic we discussed before, which is how to brag and feel good about it. So is your way of bragging is really putting your value up, or how do you cope with the uncomfortable feeling that many women face of maybe I'm bragging too much, maybe I shouldn't brag, or maybe, you know, I should just wait for being acknowledged?
Yeah, I think people just need to do it. And I think there's different ways of sort of bragging, so to speak. I think, you know, when I first started, I was probably a little bit more analytical in the way that I sort of bragged. I'd be like, hey, boss, I've done these 5 things. Can you please like now acknowledge me for this, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the better way of doing it is through storytelling, like giving examples of what you've done, what you've achieved, how you achieved it, you know, when you achieved it, because, you know, that's better than kind of like just being blunt and bragging and, you know, just being kind of forceful of like, I'm so great because I did this, this, and this. So I think through storytelling, you know, and as you listen to people and as you try to position yourself, you know, to be that person of either authority or the person that can help problem solve, people tend to remember stories more than what they remember, you know, facts and figures. So if you can hook people in with, you know, hey, I've got a similar experience. I've done A, B, and C before. It's doing that storytelling to kind of get them to that level of understanding who you are, what you've achieved, where you kind of go through. And, you know, Beata, we talked about this, you know, a few weeks ago as well. Me and you are like global citizens. We've traveled the world. We've moved in different countries. We've moved through different networks. And we probably don't tell people that as much as we should, of what global citizens we are and how connected we are globally, and sort of how we can like, you know, bounce from one person to the next and connect, you know, people through our network.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm actually struggling with that still. Some people might think that I'm quite visible, and a friend of mine was telling me, who's Maltese. She said, you know, you're known in Malta. What do you care? You know, you're already there. Whereas I feel, you know, not many people associate me with the right things. And then my biggest challenge is actually everybody thinks, you know, I'm just Patrick's wife. My husband is, you know, established entrepreneur. So there is always this problem. And even 2 years ago, we went to this great dinner that was arranged by one of the networks I was mentor of, and the startup that I was mentoring won the final and every single competition that was going. So we went to this dinner, and I took my husband with me. Yeah. So the guy approached my husband and asked him, oh, so which startup did you mentor? And he was like, no, I'm just a partner. So yeah. That was a moment that I felt, damn, not again, because I have to again prove that I am capable of mentoring. I am capable of many, many things, and I've established a couple of companies. So but I still have, deep down, I have that feeling of, well, I have not done enough. Do you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's because we're always constantly trying to push ourselves to the next level and to the next level and to the next level. And I think we've had this conversation before of how sort of women get labeled in business. So women in tech. And it's like, well, I'm not a woman in tech. I'm a business owner. I'm a technologist. I am, and it's trying to kind of sort of, move away from those labels. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's because, we're still always trying to get to that next level and that next level and next level. And I think part of it's characteristics. We're the type of person, that we're go-getters. We want to get to that next level, Part of it is how kind of society label us. And I think, we need to start calling that kind of stuff out. I don't want to be labeled as a woman in tech because I'm not that. I've got a lot of other qualities that I do and a lot of other characteristics about myself. But always thriving to kind of get to that next level. And I think with us women, sometimes we have the whole imposter syndrome, because going back to what I said earlier, we haven't really put ourselves at that level of value that we should be at. We don't brag as much as we should. So that's why sometimes we kind of feel a bit, oh, am I good enough to do this? Am I not? Like, I think we spoke about me coming on here and I was like, oh God, I haven't really done this in a very long time. Am I going to be good enough on screen? Can I hold the conversation? What can you do? And it's one of those things where you just got to do it.
Just do it. Screw it. Just do it. Just like Richard Branson said. He might not be that popular nowadays when he's trying to bail out.
Exactly. Absolutely.
But that's actually, it comes to this great role model that we both love. Cindy Gallop said, even if you brag every day, you still are not going to brag as much as men do. So deal with it.
Exactly. And you know what? It's like people are going to, like, in Australia, we've got Vegemite. I think the equivalent in the UK is Marmite. I don't like either, which is probably very un-Australian of me. But it's one of the things. People are either going to like you or love or not. And do you care? No, because the people that do need your help and the people that do, value who you are and what you do, they're going to gravitate towards you. So actually, there's a whole world of people. So why spend your time and your energy on people that, they're probably shouldn't be part of your circle of trust and your circle of network anyway. So you just kind of, as I put on my lessons learned board, let it go.
Yeah.
And move.
Oh, absolutely. I hope we have Fran Moisa, who was joining us the first PhD, and she actually said, you just done this and that, and I wish I could do this and that. And she's putting her own live stream, and she was asking me, how do you do this and that? And I wish I could have the same personality. And I said, I'm not a Campbell's chicken soup or whatever. No, not everybody likes me. You might like me, but not everybody likes me. So, and it doesn't matter because I can't please everybody. So just deal with it. So that's much better.
Yeah. No, I think that's the key for women is like people might not like you, and that's okay. It's okay. Like, men don't care. They'll just move on to the next. They don't care, and it's that whole emotional thing. We're like, not everyone. It's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there is another topic that you mentioned that I quite like. Why, and this is my frustration as well, because I used to be this woman in tech, and actually even worse still, because I was involved since 2014 back in Poland. I was running a local group called Giggers Cars. Giggers Cars is a global organization started in 2011. Now it's in different countries, and I actually contributed to a couple of countries. I started a chapter in Australia as well, and in Japan. So And the problem was actually in the name, because when people hear geek girls, they think, oh, it's little girls, they're gonna, you know, and I am trying to escape from either, you know, there is a problem with women on it because, oh, can I participate because I'm a man? No, of course you can. We need everybody involved. We need all the help that we can get. Another problem I see is if you form this kind of woman in tech movement, it's still not good enough because we need more female leaders, women who are going to, you know, burst through the door and say, you know, we need to change things. And they are not afraid to ask questions. They are not afraid to speak up. And that's why I formed Women on It, because we need more women on top of the industry, much more than at the bottom of the industry, which is the revolving door issue, because we never make it to the top. No matter how many women in tech enter the technology field, the retention is going to be scarce if you don't appreciate them and don't give them the chance to succeed. So
I think that's why the kind of dialogue and the conversations need to start changing. Like the reason we have to have women in tech groups, the reason we have to kind of go women is because actually it shouldn't really be gender-based, but we need to start talking about sort of equality in sort of the opportunities that it does. But unfortunately, because you know, women go through their career and they're the only ones that can have kids and career breaks and stuff like that, it kind of does put them, you know, slightly behind. But it was interesting because I find it, you know, maybe this is where, Beata, we can just throw a little quiz out to the audience, because we keep talking about women in tech and there's not enough women in tech. And but I think people have forgotten how many women actually, you know, are the ones that created tech. So I don't know if the audience want to sort of shout out potentially, do they know sort of some of the cool products that women you know started that actually have been forgotten about in you know in society? And back then when it, you know, people were inventing stuff, they weren't kind of going, oh, it was a woman in tech. It was just invented. Like Wi-Fi was just invented. But people forget that Wi-Fi was invented by a woman, right? So I don't know, I don't know if the audience want to have a bit of a guess. I've got a slide I can actually show you that some of the women did.
I like a little quiz. So ladies and gentlemen, time for a quiz. And we can offer, let's say, half an hour consultancy with you. Would it be okay? Or
sure.
With me? So the reward is half an hour consultancy with either myself, Beata Young, founder of Women on IT, or many other ventures, or Laura Mercurio. So do you know any woman that invented something cool? Doesn't have to be recently, can be long time ago. And actually, I'm curious because I didn't think about that question. And, you know, is it time to reveal it or not yet? We are waiting for comments. So let's move on to the next question, maybe in the meantime.
Okay, and then we can come back to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So think about it. And you can use the Google search on your phone. Don't switch off your live stream and stay with us, because we're gonna talk about Laura, about the survey that we are launching, because this is exciting survey. We were thinking about it for a long time, and we feel this is something that we can give to the community. And can you tell us a little bit, because you were so brilliantly preparing the survey? I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, so I think when I started looking at, when I first came into sort of the ecosystem of the new tech, so to speak, and one of my biggest frustrations with helping startups and scale-ups was the lack of funding available from sort of, you know, VCs, angels, etc., particularly for women. And, you know, it was one of those things that kind of links back to a lot of things that we've been talking about, that we don't brag enough about what we do. We're probably not, you know, as aggressive enough with sort of going out to find funding. We probably think we can do it ourselves and that. So there was this big gap where, and if you look at the statistics, like there are a lot of male founder, you know, ventures that have been funded rather than females. So I've been looking to try coordinate and work out how much better, and that's why, you know, Beata and I have been talking about how much, you know, we can start helping these women. And then unfortunately what happened was COVID-19 hit. So we took a step back and went, you know what, absolutely now women need more help ever, because if you look at the way that, you know, it's happened with COVID, everything happened really quickly. Things have shut down. You know, whether we like it or not, women tend to be the carers at home, doing the schooling, looking after the elderly parents, et cetera, et cetera. So coming out of this, are we going to see a bigger gap between, you know, in whether it's gender pay for women, whether it's kind of founders, startups, et cetera? And one of the things that we are, you know, concerned about is, you know, women businesses surviving, you know, especially those that are, you know, founder women led, you know, or have a diverse team, that we can sort of help with that. So we've collated a bit of a survey just to kind of ensure that our fingers on the pulse. Like me and Beata have spoken to people in our network. We want to go a bit wider than that. So we've created a small survey, which we'd really appreciate if you guys could fill out. It only take about 10 minutes just to kind of, you know, help us understand where you're at today with your business. You know, are you a new entrepreneur, a scaling company, one that went through the first round of funding and maybe didn't get your second round? Are you looking to, you know, get to that next level? What are your biggest fears for where we are with COVID? Did you have a business continuity plan? If so, has it worked? If not, and we just want to kind of get a, you know, a finger on the pulse to just make sure that, you know, the research we've done actually validates with what's actually happening.
And also to make sure that we are able to help you. And that's the main key. So we've got an answer from Olga. Olga's been very active. Thank you, Olga, for being with us. So she just said, first computer manual, Ada Lovelace. And that's a great answer. Do you remember?
Correct.
Yep,
Shall I put up some of the other ones? Just so
yes, let's have a look. Yep.
Woman invented Wi-Fi and GPS, the windshield wiper, the fire escape. You know, we mentioned Ada Lovelace did computer algorithms, CCTV, computer software, the life raft, beer. We invented beer, men. Like we did that. You know, choc chip cookies and the Monopoly. Monopoly was a new one I learned today. I did not realize that that's what there were. So we can send the link out with some of that. And this is just a few. There is a lot more out there. You know, things like liquid paper. You know, I love drinking Vervicleek champagne, invented by a woman, Barbara Nicole, right? But yet Vervicleek is still very male dominated. So I think this is where it kind of goes back with how are we, and you know, this is something, this is very historical, the ones I've given you, but how are we still like in this space of like, you know, women in tech or women inventing stuff, or, you know, women in their business still so far behind when some of the fundamentals that we are using today were invented by women.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, Laura. That's a great reflection on time and history and how many awesome women are role models, not so much remembered nowadays. And we celebrated, actually last year, we celebrated two great achievers in terms of programming, because Ada Lovelace was born in December, as well as Grace Hopper, the amazing Grace, who also invented the programming called Tobot programming, which is used till today. And she's amazing because she was called amazing when she retired. She was admiral of USS Army, and she was asked to come back, and she returned to work and still served the country, and she was awesome. And her great quotation I like to use is, ships are beautiful when they are sitting in the port, but they are not. That's not what ships are made for. So you have to sail out and conquer the world. So Laura, do you have a quotation that you like to use?
Oh, I've got a lot. I've got a poster up there that says live, laugh, love. But I think my quotation is, I might have mentioned it slightly before, is the one that basically it's a good reminder that is, you know, if something doesn't go your way, that's life redirecting you to the path you're supposed to take. And I need to keep remembering that on days where I might have a frustrating day, where things aren't quite going the way I needed to go. And again, then I remember that quote and I sit back and go, okay, so what is this trying to teach me? Where is my lesson learned here? This is obviously happening for a reason. And then how do I direct myself or get myself back on track? In business terms, how do we keep pivoting to get to kind of where we need to do it? And I think, I really like the Nike quote, just do it. You just got to do it. Like if you fear of something, just do it.
Oh, absolutely. And we've got Gordon with us today, and he also mentions some women inventions include word processor, dishwasher, color ID, central heating, paper bag, laser, cataract surgery, stem cell isolation. So we've got gorgeous men also willing to support us and remembering these great facts. Gordon, you impress me with your memory. So now off to talk with our great entrepreneur, Laura. So I'm curious, what made you choose your career, independent career, rather than work for big corporates? Because I think being in London, working for big corporates, having lunches and having cushy job is not really that challenging instead of running around trying to get clients and trying to make sure that you've got money for the rent next month.
Yeah, so I think it was when I was working at BlackRock, I'd kind of done so many awesome things. And then I got to this kind of crossroad in my career where I was like, I really want to do something different. I've always wanted to do consultancy. But I think what made it but I'd never worked for a big four consultancy. So that was one of the challenges I first had going into consultancy is the box everyone wants to put you in. They'll be like, oh, you haven't worked for a big four. And it's like, okay, so I'm not a PowerPoint genius, but that's not what you're paying me for, right? You're paying me for my industry knowledge. And where I was able to carve out where my niche was where I was more successful as a consultant was because I had been on this industry side, because I have been in the wars and I've got the stories and what works and what doesn't. I had been that employee with the challenges that were in my job, et cetera, et cetera. So I kind of went, through that phase. And what I loved about it was also because it gives me the variety to work with different clients, because with what I do, it actually doesn't matter what industry you're in. So I've worked in sort of pharmaceuticals, I've done financial services. And then I got to this point where I was, when I started working in fintech, I took a step back and went, okay, so what have we done? We've got this great tech ecosystem called fintech. And all we've done is lifted and shifted all the problems from one corporate into a tech ecosystem. And that includes what we've just talked about, the number of women on boards, the number of women in tech, the number of that, that still happens in corporate. It's now happening over here. People from corporate are leaving and going over here and calling themselves tech gurus, entrepreneurs, etc. So we've just kind of moved the problem. But what I started to see is everybody had, it doesn't matter what you're trying to build, everyone still has the same issues. They've all got problems to solve. A lot of startups and scale-ups don't have a defined strategy or direction or clarity of where they want to go. They, especially with the younger generation who have been successful in a startup, but they've never had that corporate career to help them, sort of scale businesses. And the things that as you grow your business, you have to have in place. Like, how do you manage a team? How do you kind of communicate? How do you collaborate with people? How do you, take a leadership role and lead to that next level? So I think what, really drove me to kind of do that is, I probably didn't have someone like that in my career that can help me guide me. And so I learned, through kind of some of my failures and the mistakes in that. And if I'd had someone throughout, my career, like I've had mentors, but I've had to chop and change depending on where I'm at. So if I can help that next generation, especially get to that next level in sort of building and scaling their businesses, I think that's kind of what inspired me to do it. But also for me, because I sometimes can be quite impatient and I'm very curious, I like working on multiple things and learning about different things. So the good thing about working with a lot of scale-ups is I've had the opportunity to kind of work with a lot of interesting companies and, new technology and real kind of companies that are solving real problems. And that's when I shifted sort of not so much with fintech, but just working with lots of different other, companies, from a cake delivery company to a, mentoring company to a defense company to music entrepreneurs who are creative and have got the music side, but don't know how to run a business.
That's fascinating because there are so many people in life you can meet, and there are so many businesses and business models you can see.
Yeah.
Do you remember any particular business, and if so, why? Was there any reason that one really stick with your mind and is like your treasure kind of in your career?
Oh, that's a difficult one. Different companies with lots of different, they've all got their different personalities and different tweaks, but I think probably the most important one is the people, right? So you always remember the kind of people that you work with more so than the company, right? I think actually right now, I think one thing that's really resonating, and it's not necessarily a company, it's someone I'm mentoring. So I'm part of the sort of the Commonwealth last year started a mentor program for sort of third world countries, and this year they did it with Africa. So I was selected to kind of mentor some women in Africa trying to start their business and grow their businesses. And again, it's the same thing. Doesn't matter what they're trying to do, they all seem to have the same problems. And right now, that's really resonating with me. And I'm looking at kind of how one of my mentees is absolutely smashing it. She's like, even though she doesn't feel like she's getting as far as in 6 months, she really got her strategy nailed. She's really getting to that next level. And even though the program's finished, I'm still mentoring her. And even over the last few days, she's like, I don't know what to do with COVID. So we went through that education of how can you pivot the business? What are some of the things that you can now do differently with what you're doing? How can you help women more in, your training and your education and all of that in this? And just seeing, that with the lack of, they don't have as many resources as we do. They don't have a funding platform to kind of go pitch to somebody and say, I need some money to scale my business. But how, just the knowledge and the what we've, and, skills and resources that I can, point them in the right direction to use, and just seeing that growth on, and actually seeing a quicker growth with some of those companies than what I've seen in the UK that have like an abundance of sort of resources. I think that at the moment it's kind of going, so it doesn't matter where you are in the world, everyone's got a problem they're solving, and everyone can try get to that next level if they kind of just have the right direction and clarity to kind of get there.
So we are using a little bit of bullshit bingo, I'm sorry, but we are using words that not everybody might understand. So if you could just give a brief description of what pivoting means.
Yeah,
with
so
some examples.
It's more just sort of changing what you're doing. So, at the moment, a lot of businesses under COVID, for example, is, they were kind of bricks and mortar. They were like, so if I take my gym, for example, I do CrossFit. It was a new business. They only opened up last October. And, they were just starting to build their membership, but just starting to build their community. They've got overheads as far as rent, equipment, everything else. And so they shifted their business. So pivoting is literally just how do you redirect? How do you shift? How do you get things, continually moving to survive? So when COVID hit, they were actually really quick to move everybody online. So now they run all their daily sessions online, and they, live Zoom like this, or, live webcasts at different times of the day. They're doing all these other add-in plugins. So they're, putting in a nutritionist and the physiotherapist. And so all these additional benefits that you can kind of plug and play. So that's an example where they probably never planned for COVID. No one planned for COVID. But they had already set themselves up to succeed, to just change their business model slightly. And actually, I think it's probably now a new offering that once COVID's lifted, you've probably got two offerings now. They can continue doing their online for people that just want to be online. And then you can still have the, turning up to the gym every day, using the equipment, and like renting out the equipment was another thing. They allowed us to use equipment. So really thinking, how can I think creatively to solve this problem and then shift your business to that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There is another example just around the corner. There is a restaurant called Noni. They had amazing story because just 2 weeks before COVID, they got their Michelin star. So they were fully booked, and they were booked in advance, and all of a sudden COVID happened, and so they started doing what they were doing before with a smaller price, but they are delivering, and they are still thriving, and they are trying to go through the difficult time. And I think this is a very important lesson. Rather than waiting for once it's finished, think ways how you can improve, how you can be bulletproof for situations like that, because there might be another COVID, there might be another virus, or there might be muted virus. So we never know, but actually this is the beauty of technology, which I am quite pleased about, because if we look at the number of people who are online now versus before COVID, I'm really confident that we are going to shift and have our online visibility more often than before. And, I was trying to convince so many people to join the network of Women on It, or go online and do a Zoom and so on. And people were like not really confident with it. Now it's the norm. That's the necessity.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things is, looking at businesses when we come out of COVID, in the sense of, especially those large corporates that were hesitant. They were hesitant for people to work from home, and this. We've basically proved we can do it. So it's going to be interesting to see which sort of businesses survive. If you take a look at a load of the sky rises that have been, going up in London, and all this constructions and all of that. Now that we've proved we can all work online, are people really going to start filling all of those towers and all of that? So what impact is that going to have on those types of businesses? And, I think one of the other things from a startup and a scale up perspective is, what I haven't seen is a lot of people doing, traditional business continuity. Now, of course, with COVID, you probably, couldn't have planned it was going to happen. But, a lot of people now want to digitize really quickly. So one of the clients I'm working at the moment, as soon as COVID hit, really wanted to kind of hurry up and digitize. And it's like, well, you can't just do it overnight either, because you can't just slam everybody onto the, internet, especially if you've got like a corporate wrapper around it where you've got big compliance issues and stuff like that. So, I think it's also going to make people future-proof and plan a lot more, especially in the startup and the scale-up. I think what happens is they, especially with once people get VC money, they tend to spend a lot of it on sales and marketing and customer acquisition and stuff, and not necessarily on building their operating model. How is this going to be supported from an operating perspective? How do you downsize, upsize, go sideways? And how do you long-term future-proof that? So it's going to be interesting to see coming out of this, and of course, when in the UK, when we look at some of the government subsidies that happen, there's a whole chunk of people that have been kind of forgotten about because of their structure. So it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, it's interesting to see when we come out of this where we kind of end up.
Yeah, and if you look at the HoReCa industry, and especially Airbnbs, they are really in great difficulty, especially given the fact that Airbnb didn't really offer any support, and there are ways to do it. So there are ways to actually convince people that we are going to come out strong and we are part of it, because I think what is very important for businesses like Airbnb or Uber is keeping the community happy, and Women on It is also part of this structure of trying to make sure that the community is part and at heart of what you're doing. So that's actually a huge difference when you've got Airbnb who did nothing and didn't really support their community, and that's who is their main breadwinner, right? So when we talk about startups, we discussed it before. In Silicon Valley, they talk about cutting deep and cutting quick, and it's all the costs have to be cut quickly, and you have to be more efficient. there are some jobs that are being laid off, but I think we are moving more into freelance workers, right?
Yeah, I think so. But again, that's I think that's where the challenge is at the moment with what's happened with sort of COVID-19. It's those freelance workers and the self-employed that are probably the most vulnerable at the moment, because if companies are taking that knee-jerk reaction, going, right, let's stop all non-permanent, or how do we kind of sort of move forward on that, are the ones that are kind of doing it. So I do think, coming out of this, it is revisiting the kind of gig economy and looking at how, that freelancing model sort of works, because there's benefits, for a lot of companies to have non-permanent staff members where you can come in, do a project, and then kind of move on. And it's cost efficient, it's effective, it kind of, it works well also from a, an individual perspective, having that flexibility to work the hours that you want to work, especially if you are caring for a family, like, a lot of female freelancers, because, as long as you get the job done, it doesn't really matter what, hours of the day you work. If you're task orientated and delivery orientated, as opposed to time orientated, which is very traditional, 9 to 5, sit at your desk, that definitely benefits a lot of businesses.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the topics we have got planned for our session in May, remote working and what are the benefits. Yeah. And I think this is where many companies will move towards, because it's no longer efficient to commute every day. 2 hours of your day is actually spent commuting to and from work. So we are heading to the final questions. So just to wrap it up in terms of our exciting news, in terms of we are trying to help you fund your business, your idea. If there are any questions you would like to pose to us, there is a link at the bottom of our discussion. You can send it to our website, womenonit.org. But also, we want you to succeed. If there is any particular question related to your business, please feel free to send it to me, and I'll be happy to either direct you to Laura, who's amazing career, is definitely somebody I could recommend speaking to. But also, I think there is a time we can talk about the mentorship program. I mean, what does it give you? Because I've been a mentor a couple of times in Poland as well as abroad. What benefits are there for the mentor and for the mentee?
So I think the biggest benefit is that accountability. So I think where I've had mentors and business advisors, it's not only helped me be accountable, but also to be a sounding board, have someone to help you give clarity. And I find I'm very easy to kind of, when I'm mentoring someone, it's easy for me to see where the problem is, because I'm not ingrained in the day-to-day. So I think the benefits from having a mentor is, having that accountability, having someone as a sounding board, having someone that's a bit more experienced, and also someone that's connected in the network of what you're trying to do, because I think it's that collaboration and that network that kind of really, helps for having a mentor. I think, where I get a lot of, satisfaction is seeing my mentees grow. So I mentioned sort of the girls in Kenya, or the women, I should say, in Kenya, and seeing them get to that kind of next level, seeing the musicians that are, now they're getting those extra skills to be able to run their own business and be efficient as a musician and a creative, as well as a business owner and a business, person. So I think it's seeing that level of growth and seeing people succeed in what they're doing is what gives me the kind of satisfaction that I know that I've kind of helped them kind of get to where they need to be. And it just becomes, better for everybody else, because everyone's helping solve a real problem. And there are people that are benefiting from the problem these companies are solving. So if we can help people get there quicker and faster and succeed along the way. I just think that's really awesome. So I think it's great to have a mentor, as well as the satisfaction of being sort of a mentee, especially in the younger generation where, you know, a lot of people are going straight out of, you know, some of them aren't doing university, some of them going straight to startups and might not have had that corporate kind of learning. It's sort of passing on some of that with their businesses as they grow as well.
For me, actually, it's the time that I see the change. You see,
yes.
When they start, they are just like, you know, so naive and quite often throw these numbers and without any consequence. And then how they mature as an entrepreneur is a really fascinating journey to take on and be part of it and actually feel good about yourself because you know you contributed to their future in one way or the other. So that's definitely something.
And I think people working together, you're always going to learn something. You're never not going to learn from someone, whether it's something small, something large. And so that's why I think even just, you know, it's that two-way relationship and that two-way collaboration. And you always learn, you know, from somebody or some activity that you're doing. And so everybody kind of grows.
Yeah, it's like, you know, a couple of years ago, I did an interview and I said entrepreneurship is like with walking. When you start walking, you fall down and you pick up yourself and you start again and you never give up walking just because you fell down. So that's exactly the same problem with many entrepreneurs. They dwell on the problem and they think, oh, maybe I can't do it. Maybe I'm not ready yet and I should prepare this. And I had this problem with actually because one of the networks we created, it's a Mission to Run hub, and we actually have got another meeting online next Thursday at 6 o'clock. Everybody welcome. And actually the number of times I was trying to push women to say, you know, we've got a program, you've got to participate in it, you're ready. And they were like, no, I need another month or two, or maybe a week, you know, and I need to put a couple of dots and make it perfect. Done is better than perfect, right?
Exactly. Some progress is better than no progress, and we keep forgetting that. So it's that kind of, you know, and also if you're going to fail fast, get up, do it again, you know. So yeah, I agree. It's like, you know, a little bit of progress is better than no progress at all. So I definitely agree with you. Sometimes we do need to push a little bit more because we do feel like we need to make things perfect. And I just think there is no perfect. That's the thing, because as you go through that process, you are going to learn more and more and more and sort of change and shift the business slightly to kind of get there. So yeah, I think
pivot, as we discussed. Absolutely. So Laura, it's been a pleasure. Before we finish, I would like to ask the question I always ask, everybody has to answer. So the question is, imagine the lockdown is over and tomorrow you can choose any place and any person you would like to have private breakfast with. Who it would be and where would you like to take that breakfast?
Oh, okay. So I think it'd have to be my mum, because no matter what, my mum's been a pillar of strength as a woman. She's raised 4 amazing daughters on her own. My mum was the traditional Italian, you know, housewife, and then due to changing circumstances after 20 years of being at home, my mum had to reinvent herself and, you know, upskill, reskill, and, you know, become a strong sort of independent woman that she's actually sort of passed on to us. So it's that learning that I got from her to be strong, resilient, self-sufficient, etc., etc. And I think I'd like to take it to Japan, because my mum's always had a bit of a fascination for Japan, and she used to tell us about a pen pal that she had, you know, when she was like younger. So I think it would have to be after lockdown, mum and Japan.
Oh, fantastic! I thought you were gonna pick up some famous leaders or I don't know, some star of something, but there you go. Your mom is definitely worth it. Is she Italian or is it from your father's side?
Yep, she is. So do you know what's interesting is you say that. So I think possibly pre-COVID, if you had asked me that question, I probably would have gone with some business entrepreneur or some celebrity or whatever. But it's amazing how things kind of just shift. And right now, going back to sort of how I, was telling you about having that strong network of friends and family and business associates and that around you in a time like this, it is kind of you start to really reflect on sort of your learnings and who's been there and what and stuff. So I could have listed loads of people, but I think that for me resonates at the moment, especially being so far away from the family. And I think we forget sometimes is where we've learnt, a lot of our, skills and
basics.
knowledge. Yeah.
Come back to the basics, and that's actually where
No, I was going to say that's perfect actually to also just for startups, and sometimes we just got to go back to basics.
Absolutely. And there is always chance to pivot and change your mind to have that private breakfast with somebody else. Who knows? Yes. And somewhere else. Definitely Japan is also on my list. So if your mom had her dream fulfilled, I'm next on the line. So Laura, it's been a pleasure.
You can come along. She'll love you. The more, the merrier.
Oh, fantastic. I'm looking forward, Laura. It's been a pleasure to host you in our Positivity Hug Delivered. Thank you very much for your positive thoughts. Final question, how do you keep optimism?
Oh, how do I keep optimism? You just got to do it, actually. I think it's just always, I've got a quote in my my diary that, it flashes up every morning, and it says, every day is a new beginning. Take a deep breath and start again. So it kind of leave tomorrow, like yesterday, whatever happened, and every day is a new beginning. So take a deep breath, start again. So I think that's how I keep positive. I have that, it comes up at 8 o'clock every day on my my calendar, just to kind of remind me, forget yesterday, start again today, and just move forward.
You've got this unique opportunity, so start with the right foot. Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you for this positive thought from Laura. And thank you very much for our audience. Olga, your half-an-hour session is with us whenever you're ready. We are here. Thank you, Gilbert, as well, to Gordon, for joining us tonight. I know you're very busy. You're probably gone by now, but if you have a chance, please pass on best regards to your wife. What an amazing person you are, supportive of Women on It, Hug the Future. Good night, goodbye, till next Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you.